All right, apparently I'm live, and sorry if my camera's shaking a bit here. So this is Brad Hawkins for Lesson 7 on gratitude, and a little bit of an explanation first. Our group had an issue of our group night being on Halloween, which got in the way for pretty much all of us. So knowing we're all a busy group, everyone has jobs and commitments, we went back and forth and weren't able to schedule a time where we could all get together. So we agreed for this week that we would all do individual videos and post them and see how that went. So that's why I'm here by myself. All right. So let me flip over what I'm viewing to be able to see the questions for the lesson again, just as a reminder. So for the gratitude discussion, I guess technically I did 4 people, because the first one I did was my boss at work, my new boss. He's been my boss for about 6 months now. They brought a new CEO in at our company, and I wrote him a quick note, just thanking him for the change in culture that he's brought to our company, the change in attitude he's brought for me, because I was in actually a very difficult position at our job, in that our previous CEO was failing miserably, in that we didn't have a focused strategy, and we had just fairly recently been purchased by a private equity company, and it was not going well. And she was using me as her scapegoat, and she was then let go when they brought in a new CEO who, it's been nothing but him telling me how valued I am. I'm actually hearing from the private equity company, please don't leave us, don't go anywhere. So it's completely changed my experience at work, which really had gone downhill in the last couple of years, where I was ready to leave. So that kind of goes into the discussion too about how does it increase effectiveness. It's completely changed me at work, because I was miserable. I mean, it was beyond just being effective at work. When you don't feel, sorry for waving there's a fly flying around in here, I don't know why. But when you don't feel valued at work, like I didn't feel valued, and I mean, I could hardly get out of bed. I was so miserable to actually go to work. And I did have an interesting discussion with my new boss at one point where, they always talk about you shouldn't take things personal. You shouldn't, it's business versus your personal life. And I've always had this feeling like if you're getting trashed at work or you don't feel valued, that's like your work life is like 2/3 of your life. So how can you not feel not great, or in my case, pretty horrible, if you don't feel valued somewhere of what you're doing, where you're spending 2/3 of your time? It's crazy. But then the second person I did was my wife, because to be honest, I don't know that I could function as a human without my wife. Probably seems like an obvious one, but I just felt if we were going to write notes to people and tell them how much we appreciated them, how important they were in our life, that was an easy one for me to identify my wife. And then the reason I said I actually did 4 was because I also did it for both of my children, who have grown up to be wonderful young adults, and they actually help and make my life easier. So I wrote them notes about that and all the things they do around our house, and just the things they do to help me and make my life easier. So that's the 4 that I did. So one of the questions on here is how did it make me feel? Felt pretty good. Just making sure they know it was a nice surprise for all of them. So they were all happy to get those. So then it talks about what's the role of gratitude in organizations. Having read the 3 articles as well, or the conference talk, and I think 2 of them were articles, I just think it's an important motivator. People just aren't going to work as hard if they feel like, why am I putting in all this time and nobody cares? So it's important that they know that you appreciate the work that they're doing. And that's an obvious connector to how it increases effectiveness. Because again, if people think that what they're doing makes a difference, that they're valued, they're going to want to continue to do it. Plus, like, just one of the articles talked about teams and making sure you're working together properly as a team. And if everybody feels like, it's not about one person, it's about the success of an entire organization and how everyone's playing a part in that, that just makes a huge difference. The last question on here was, what are the barriers to expressing gratitude? I can only talk about myself, I guess, personally here. It's difficult for me. I'm not the most outgoing person, or not always the one to be reaching out first to people. Although when I became an exec in our company, that was something I knew I had to work on. Actually, I think I told this story in a previous lesson, but I learned early on in life. I used to work for a company where I actually lived in Grenada, and it was called out to me. I got called in once to be told, like, these people they're not working as hard for you because they don't know that you care about them. Because when you come in every morning, you don't say good morning. You don't ask them how they're doing. You don't ask about their families. So I kind of learned pretty well, like, you gotta show your people you appreciate them, you care about them. Which I'm just being honest, it doesn't necessarily come naturally to me to always be the first to be reaching out, but I've worked very hard on being able to do that. So that's all the questions I see on here. I was like reading, just for the articles, I was like reading talks from President Monson, and how he talked about the people who were healed, and only one came back and talked about gratitude, and that's an awesome lesson. The other one about fostering a culture of gratitude. Again, that goes back to my experience, even at my own job, and what I've seen from others as well, is you want to feel appreciated at work. And then the other one was gratitude at work. So it's kind of the same thing of, people are going to work harder if they feel like they make a difference, and that you appreciate everything that they've done. So this is going to be shorter because there's not 4 of us talking about this. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my recording and hope everything worked. And I'll go ahead and post this on there. So again, you should see from our group, I haven't looked to see who's already posted, but there should be individual videos on there this week. And we'll be back at it this next coming week. Thanks.